Minister for Education.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to speak on the budget today that the Treasurer handed down yesterday. But I just want to make some comments about the opposition leader and just to talk about some of the things that she spoke about. And she spoke about, the Better Fairer Schools agreement that the previous government signed up to. Well, in actual fact, Madam Speaker, any responsible government would have negotiated the Better Fairer Schools agreement, as it is this investment that will build on our future Territorians. And we need schools funded correctly here to employ teachers, support staff. She also went on to talk about school-based police, and we do have increased funding, in actual fact $3 million for the school-based police funding program. So we do, I don't know what she was actually reading or whether she missed that part of the budget. But anyway, just to let her know that there is money for school-based policing, and that is actually a very important part in the education system that we are looking forward to expanding on. She also said that it lacked vision, and we had the, she was talking about the highest net debt per capita. In actual fact, Madam Speaker, just after almost 9 short months, we have inherited an $11 billion debt from her previous Labor government. So, I think she needs to look in her own backyard before she's talking about the highest debt per capita, but because it is because of the previous government's willful spending just on pet projects, and I think we've done that to death over the time. So, Madam Speaker, I rise to speak on our first budget as a new government under the leadership of Chief Minister Leah Finocchiaro and Treasurer Bill Yan. This budget is about restoring confidence, rebuilding the Territory. We're putting victims first and prioritising law and order. And we begin the long task of rebuilding the economy and fixing up Labor's mess they left after 8 long years. It's not a flashy budget. There's not the finances for that, Madam Speaker. We inherited $11 billion of debt from Labor, and we'll be cleaning up their mess and delivering a responsible budget, reducing crime, rebuilding the economy and restoring our lifestyle. Community safety is our #1 priority, and this budget makes a record $1.5 billion investment in police, corrections and justice, the largest law and order spend by any government in Territory history. Over the last 8 years of Labor, we saw a government that wasn't focused on the victims but instead on the perpetrator. We didn't see any financial support for infrastructure or resources for staffing in the corrections space. This has led to a corrections nightmare for the Minister, and he's working through this with his corrections master plan. Madam Speaker, after passing the strongest bail laws in Australia, the CLP government is putting its money where its mouth is. For every dollar invested in policing, we're matching that investment in our corrections and justice systems, as we know that being strong on crime requires more than an increased investment in police, corrections and justice, which is why we're funding early intervention measures that address the root causes of crime, as well as allocating funding to support victims. Madam Speaker, in education, our Finocchiaro-led CLP government is investing a record $1.6 billion in education and training. This includes $120 million for vocational and higher education. I'll talk a bit more about that later. The 2025 budget allocates $976.6 million for government education, an increase of $52.5 million to the prior year, and allocates $343.3 million for non-government education, an increase of $10.2 million to the prior year. Our CLP government is taking decisive action to break the cycle of crime by addressing its root causes through a broad package of early intervention, education, family support and housing initiatives in this year's budget. We're committed to investing in the future of our children, which is why we've allocated $12.9 million to boost school attendance through the School Attendance Officer program, an increase of more than $4 million from last year. Our CLP government is driving reforms to improve school attendance and hold parents accountable for ensuring their children go to school. This was an election commitment and we are delivering on it, Madam Speaker. Parents who deprive their children of an education will be referred for income management. One thing that doesn't get spoken about often, Madam Speaker, is the importance of parents being responsible for their children. It is a parent's responsibility to make sure their children attend school and act within a respectful way in the school environment. And when I speak to people in my community, whether it be constituents or Aboriginal organisations, 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙔𝙍𝙍, the chair of 𝙍𝙀𝙇, Lisa Mumban, was talking at the Kalano 50 Years Association birthday just recently, and talking about the importance of parents being responsible in their child's education journey. Since the introduction of school attendance officers, there has been a reduction of over 450 students on the intensive support role compared to the same period last year. This is a role the previous government chose to hide and have in a separate role of attendance rates they spoke of. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the school attendance officers who continue to work closely with families and communities to improve school attendance outcomes. Swimming in schools continues and is an election commitment again we are delivering on. Madam Speaker, we're delivering free swimming lessons for all primary school students in years 1 to 6. Our government has committed $3 million ongoing to fund these free swimming lessons, which are crucial for our territory lifestyle. It has been great to speak to parents and schools that have previously not done lessons before and hear their positive feedback, some of those children just having lessons for the very first time. Our Swimming in Schools program will ensure that all children learn essential swimming and water safety skills as part of their education and is part of the broader initiative to provide cost of living relief to Territory families. This has had a great start with 127 schools that have committed to the Swim and Survive program so far by working with the NT School of Sport. Our government also is committed to ensuring qualified school counsellors are based in schools, unlike the previous government, and properly resourcing them by committing $1.9 million to expand qualified school counsellors in schools. The School Counsellor Election Commitment Program will be funded through a reprioritisation of existing staff and resources, and these funds will employ school-based qualified counsellors. We will establish a qualified workforce of school counsellors with urban and regional schools at a recommended ratio of 1 to 500 students with proper professional oversight. To improve candidate eligibility and interest, the school counsellor role will have a broader essential qualification like counselling, social work or psychology, and a more focused scope of practice. A qualified workforce of social workers will continue supporting primary, special and remote schools with evidence-based programs and critical incident responses. Our $1.9 million commitment refers to the new school counselling team and will employ 14 full-time equivalent staff from July 2025 and 6 full-time equivalent staff from January 2026, a total of 20 full-time equivalent staff by June 2026. Demonstrating our government's commitment to training and higher education, the sector will receive a $10.2 million increase in this budget, boosting the total investment to $28.6 million to support apprenticeships and traineeships. Skilling Territorians is a critical part of rebuilding the Territory's economy. And we know that students need choice in their education journey, and we've increased the focus on school-based apprenticeships and traineeships, giving an important pathway to meaningful employment. And as a previous tradie, Madam Speaker, and as a family of tradies, I'm very pleased to see that we also have free TAFE and vocational education and training courses. We've got up to $1,000 for first-year apprentices and trainees to buy workwear and equipment as part of the workwear and gear bonus, and the payroll tax exemptions for trainee and apprentice wages, encouraging employers to invest in the Territory workforce, which is critical to having more tradies out there. Also, those young tradies with their vehicles, they won't receive an increase to their car rego for 12 months, and they can also access the free driver's licence for the next 12 months as well, Madam Speaker. As well as investing in these measures to increase school attendance and apprenticeships and traineeships, we are also investing $14.2 million to boost literacy and numeracy in government schools to get back to basics. Madam Speaker, our government is taking practical measures to keep and attract teachers here in the Territory. We know the Northern Territory has a poor reputation when it comes to crime around the country and is a detriment to people seeking to move here, including teachers. We want teachers to move to the Territory. We have the highest paid teachers in the nation, but we must have them feeling safe. Madam Speaker, this budget is a victim-first budget that is strong on crime and addresses the root causes of it. We are reversing Labor's weak on crime legacy and doing what we can to keep Territorians safe. While being strong on crime, this budget invests $13.8 million for keeping and attracting teachers in government schools by giving them financial certainty and moving them off short-term contracts and into permanent positions, so they have confidence to put down roots and stay in the Territory. Our commitment is to increase the permanent classroom teacher workforce to 75% by 2027, and we are well on our way to achieving this. As of now, 69% of classroom teachers are permanent employees. This is an increase of 6.7 percentage points compared to the same time last year. On top of these initiatives for education, we have had back-to-school vouchers delivering cost of living relief for families, sporting vouchers as well to support families, and also expanding on our school-based policing. Teachers and students need to feel safe in our school environments, and their wellbeing must be prioritised. Madam Speaker, since coming to government, we've already delivered on a raft of election commitments and delivered significant legislative reform. We've introduced Australia's strongest bail laws. We've passed mandatory minimum sentences for assaults on frontline workers. We've created new criminal offences targeting ram raids and post and boast offending. We've expanded police powers under Declan's law to crack down on bail and knife crime. We've introduced tougher public drinking offences to help restore orders to our towns and streets. This budget delivers a record $1.5 billion into public order and safety, which is crucial for communities like mine, still feeling the results of Labor's 8 years of inaction. This budget will deliver $608 million for police services, including continued support for the remote policing plan, police aircraft, CCTV monitoring and school-based policing, as I've explained. $16 million to upgrade critical infrastructure and technology at the 000 call centre, and a further $2 million allocated to boost emergency communications in Central Australia. $495 million for corrections, with $126 million in immediate funding and $176 million ongoing to deal with rising prisoner numbers. Since coming to government, we have added over 500 new corrections beds across the Territory, as the Deputy Chief Minister has spoken about this morning. If you commit a violent act in the Territory, you will face consequences, because under our government, victims come first. And again, as the Minister for Corrections has said many times, if you do the crime, we will find a bed for you. This budget delivers the most significant and sustained investments in tackling domestic, family and sexual violence in Territory history. $180 million over 5 years and $36 million ongoing to drive prevention and early intervention. We're funding specialist domestic, family and sexual violence courts, starting in Alice Springs and expanding to more sites, so victims are not re-traumatised by the justice system. New culturally safe offender programs in prisons and communities to stop violence before it escalates again. Men's behaviour change programs in Darwin, 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙼𝙔𝙍𝙎, Katherine and Alice Springs. Because violence is a choice and it can be changed, we must make change. Safe houses in remote communities where support is needed most. Specialist after-hours health response so survivors aren't left alone when they need help the most. An expanded family safety network for those at serious risk of harm or death. In Katherine, we know only too well of the incidents of domestic violence, with 4 women succumbing to their death through domestic violence in a short space of time last year. This is a scourge on society and should not be tolerated. It is not culture, but is sometimes portrayed that way. Addressing the root causes, as the Minister has said, is certainly the start to tackling these issues. There is a lot of work to do, Madam Speaker, but this also starts at home, with parents role modelling good behaviour and, again, students attending school. We're supporting frontline services with $26 million over 5 years in additional funding for the wonderful organisations that work with survivors, and we're building a permanent integrated workforce support and training system so this response is strong, skilled and sustainable. We are also expanding the circuit breaker program in Darwin, Alice Springs and Katherine with $6.6 million per annum of ongoing funding, offering wraparound support to at-risk youth, young people and families to prevent domestic, family and sexual violence and youth crime before it happens. The circuit breaker team in Katherine work in the evenings from Thursday to Sunday alongside police, public housing safety officers and Kalano Patrol. They meet in the town square, which is a highly visible area, and then after their meeting head off on patrols. This has been a game changer of working collaboratively across departments and is having a positive impact of dealing with youth. Youth are supported, family conferences are had and a safe space is found if that is necessary. Follow-ups with education, health and other agencies is part of this ongoing work that is seeing good results in its infancy stages, and I'm sure the Minister will elaborate on the circuit breaker program in her contribution. Madam Speaker, we are embedding a co-responder model in Darwin, Katherine, Tennant Creek and remote areas so the response is early, focused and fast, because no one should be left unprotected from violence. I'm proud to have also helped secure $1.5 million for the Katherine Multicultural Facility, a dedicated facility to provide a safe, welcoming space where multicultural groups can meet, host events and celebrate cultural heritage with the broader community. Katherine School of the Air and ICPA have also been lobbying and have succeeded in bringing the plight of the school to attention. These toilets are as old as the school and are insufficient when in-school week is on and visitors arrived at the school. Teachers, students and families are all using the same toilet block. Much needed funding of $500,000 for that toilet block renovation has been secured and they are grateful.
Minister, it's just on midday. Do you have much more to go?
I can finish it later.
We'll break for lunch now. The Assembly member for Katherine, you have 13 minutes remaining on your contribution.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And carrying on, I'm pleased to see the $30,000 and $50,000 homegrown territory grants are going to be ongoing to September 2026. This gives young Territorians a chance to get into the housing market or the mum and dad home builders the opportunity to build their first home. It's great for real estate companies like Elders Real Estate, 𝙍𝙀𝙇𝙀𝙑𝙀𝙍𝙀, Nutrient and LAWD with Olivia Thompson in Katherine with our new subdivision in Casuarina Stage 3. We want people, Madam Speaker, to put down roots in Katherine and stay not only there but in the Territory and enjoy the many opportunities we have and, of course, our wonderful lifestyle. I'm very pleased also to see, as an avid hiker, the 𝙍𝙀𝙬𝙀𝙀 Trail in the Gorge, along with the mountain bike trails and southern walks are all open. Thank you very much to the RAF personnel and NT Parks and Wildlife that volunteered their time to clear these trails. Madam Speaker, I've hiked the 62-kilometre 𝙍𝙀𝙬𝙀 Trail many times between the Gorge and Edith Falls, and it is stunning. Waterfalls, stunning landscapes with million-star views. What a treat it is for us in the Katherine region, and for the tourists that come as well. It's not surprising it books out within minutes of it being open each year. The mountain bike trails as well as the southern walks are also amazing. A treat to have in our own backyard, whether it's the short Barroway Loop or longer walks to either Southern Rockhole, Pat's Lookout, Jedders Leap, Butterfly Gorge, or the overnight hike to the 8th Gorge, which I hope to do one day when I have time. These walks are amazing and are enjoyed on weekends by many locals as well as tourists in the season. The Katherine Gorge, or Nipmuc, is a jewel in the crown in the Big Rivers region, and we are privileged to have, as I've said, in our own backyard. And just before I finish, Madam Speaker, I'd like to touch on a letter thanking our government for payroll tax relief I received yesterday morning. Madam Speaker, this letter was from Lisa Gibson, the State Manager from Good Start Early Learning Centre in Stewart Park, where I recently visited along with the member for Fong Lim, Dr Tanzil Rahman. Lisa goes on to say, and I quote, "On behalf of Good Start Early Learning Centre, I'd like to extend our sincere thanks for the Northern Territory Government's recent decision regarding easing payroll tax to support charities and aged care. Your government has addressed a long-standing source of uncertainty and helped create a more stable and equitable operating environment. Your decision will directly support our ability to continue this important work in the Northern Territory, particularly in communities where higher quality, safe and inclusive early learning underpinned by strong governance is most needed. Thank you for your leadership and continued support for the early childhood education and care sector. Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank Lisa for her feedback. It's always good to hear positive feedback, and especially when it involves rebuilding the economy in such a meaningful way. In closing, this budget delivers for Territorians and will see strong foundations, building strong outcomes for our future. This is critical to ensure every child has a chance to get to school, learn and contribute to the Territory. We must invest in strong, safe communities and towns such as Katherine, where I'm honoured to be the Minister of a government that focuses on reducing crime, rebuilding the economy and restoring our beautiful and unique lifestyle through this budget 25-26 financial year. I'd like to thank the Treasurer and his department for their hard work and commend this bill to the House, Madam Speaker. Thank you.